Hey Bees, I'm Marie from Humblebee and Me, and today we are making this gorgeous rosé whipped body butter. This fabulous whipped body butter is mostly cupuaçu butter and camellia seed oil. I fell in love with both of these ingredients really early in my DIYing days. I'd got my start with shea butter, which is wonderful, but really quite heavy and greasy. So after using that for a while and getting kind of sticky and kind of sick of being kind of sticky and greasy most of the time, I used a lot of shea butter, I started being really intrigued by any oils or butters that were described as being fast absorbing or lightweight. Cupuaçu butter was described as having a kind of silicone-y feel, which immediately intrigued me, so of course I had to order some of that. And camellia seed oil is described as having a almost dry finish to the skin, a really silky, super fast absorbing skin feel that I just had to experience for myself. I fell in love with both of them as soon as they arrived. I love the gorgeous, rich, and quite silicone-y skin feel of the cupuaçu butter, and that lightweight, super fast absorbing wonderfulness of camellia seed oil is just divine. When combined in the right ratios and then whipped up, these two fats come together to create just the most fabulous feeling whipped body butter. Speaking of that ratio, there's a lot less butter in here than I thought there would be. I started around that 50-50 mark, which is sort of a little low, honestly, a little low on the butter side in my experience with other soft butters, but it actually ended up being kind of high. And I ended up having to dial the butter back and dial the liquid oil up in order to get something that didn't seize. Because you can whip almost any kind of buttery concoction when it's still relatively fresh, but the true test is if it's still soft and kind of marshmallowy, a day or so later. If your oil and butter ratio isn't quite right, it'll still look whippy, but you'll go to touch it and it'll be really solid. So you need to get that ratio right so that when you whip it up, it stays nice and soft. In keeping with the rest of our rosé series, this is scented with rose, green cognac, and a citrus note. So we're using rose wax for the rose note, green cognac essential oil, and a lemon slices fragrance oil. If you're looking for substitutions for any part of the scent blend or for anything else in the recipe, please make sure you're going down to the description box below this video and then clicking through to the blog on humblebeeandme.com to read the partner post to learn about substitution alternatives, places to buy ingredients, scaling, and a whole lot more. But come on, let's get started.
We'll begin by combining the ingredients that need to be melted, so our cupuaçu butter and our rose wax, in a small bowl. And you want the bowl to be deep enough that you can whip your body butter right in it. So you're going to need 17.56 grams of cupuaçu butter, and I recommend using refined, and 0.4 grams rose wax. To melt this together, we're going to pop our little bowl in this saucepan that has about 2 centimeters or 2/3 of an inch of water in the bottom of it, and I'm going to go put this on the stovetop over medium heat for about 20 minutes to melt everything through. Once our heated phase is melted through, we can remove our pan from the heat and then remove our bowl from the water bath. Up next, we're going to stir in our camellia seed oil. We'll need 21.04 grams of that. Now that all of our oils are melted and combined, we need to start chilling this. So it is kind of tempting to just leave it to come to room temperature, but I find if you do that, it doesn't ever really structure up properly as you are whipping it. So we are going to bounce this in and out of the freezer and whip in between freezing sessions. So I'm going to go pop this in the freezer for about 5 minutes. All right, so that ended up being about 10 minutes. I checked it at 5 and it was still totally liquid. So we can see it starting to solidify a bit, and the bowl's pretty cold, so as I swish it around, I'm actually seeing it start to solidify on the edges of the bowl as well. So I'm gonna give this a bit of a scrape down, and then we can give it a quick little whipping maybe. Nah, it's still too soft for that. So I'm just gonna give this a bit of a scrape down and pop this back in the freezer to continue to get a little bit more solid, and then we will whip it. Another 5 minutes in the freezer, and I think we are ready for our first whipping. So I've got an electric beater here, and I just need the one because this is such a small batch, and we're going to give this a bit of a beating. Okay, so that was about 2 minutes of blending. Kind of, you can see it gets all super white looking, but it's definitely not really like a whipped texture yet. It's still mucho too soft. So we're going to go pop this back in the freezer for a few more minutes and then whip it again. Another 5 minutes in the freezer, and this is a little bit more solid and ready for another whipping. Okay, so that was about 3 minutes of whipping, and you can see this is getting a lot more marshmallowy and whippy, which is exactly what we want. So I'm gonna go put this back in the freezer for a wee while longer, and then we'll whip it again. That's another 5 minutes in the freezer, so whip this again. So that was about another 2 minutes of whipping, and this is really getting towards that lovely whippy consistency we want. So we're gonna add our cool down ingredients now. So we are going to be adding some vitamin E, a bit of a pink mica, and this one is blushed pink from Humblebee, some cognac green essential oil from Plants Power, and some lemon slices fragrance oil from Rustic Essentials. So we'll need 0.24 grams of green cognac essential oil, 0.16 grams lemon slices fragrance oil, 0.2 grams vitamin E oil, and 0.4 grams rose-colored mica. I like to give this a little bit of a stir first with this spatula because I kind of find if you sprinkle dry mica on top of a mixture and then go right in with your electric beaters, you kind of tend to spray a bit of mica around the room before it starts to incorporate into into the body butter. Okay, so this is looking wonderful. Like, look at that gorgeous, whippy, like, soft peaksness. And you'll notice that as you're going around with your mixer, it'll be leaving a wake of ripples in it. The body butter will have enough structure to it, kind of has a bit of a trace almost when you're stirring it. Like you can see, you get like these little swirly bits, and they hold their own rather than just kind of going bleh as it did when it was still softer. I'm gonna leave this for a while to make sure that it's, fully at room temperature. The bowl's still a little bit cold. We want to make sure we're doing kind of that final whipping around room temperature because of course that's how we are going to be storing it. We'll just kind of let that do that. Okay, so I've been letting this sit for about an hour, just totally at room temperature now. You can still see it's all lovely and lightweight and gorgeous. So we're just going to give this one final whipping and transfer it to our container. So now we're going to pop it in our container. This is a 250 milliliter jar from Humblebee, and I already have one batch of this body butter in here, one 40-gram batch that I made to take pictures for the blog post. And you can kind of see it's still lovely and light and fluffy, even though this has been sitting still for a couple days, which is exactly what we want. Of course, we want it to stay nice and light and fluffy forever. So we're now just going to gently transfer this in here. If you want to be extra fancy, you could put this in a piping bag and then lightly pipe it into your finished container for a really cool kind of textured top. I'm going to do that for our cool textured top. And there you go. You just made a beautiful rosé whipped body butter. Thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe, and please remember to go down to the description box below this video for the full written formula with all the amounts written out. And then you can also click through to my blog, humblebeeandme.com. There's a full partner blog post that has links to places to purchase ingredients, information on scaling, substitutions, shelf life, and a whole lot more. So thanks so much, and I'll see you next time.